The scent of old paper and dried ink was the only world Lin Xiao had known for 3 years. In the dim, quiet corners of the Mu Estate's grand library, she was a ghost among the living. To the other servants, she was merely the silent scholar, a girl of fallen nobility who spoke only when necessary and kept her eyes cast toward the floorboards. They did not know that behind those lowered lashes, Lin Xiao was calculating the trajectory of every conversation in the house. They did not know that her father, once the emperor's most trusted grand historian, had taught her that a kingdom could be toppled not by 1,000 swords, but by a single misplaced grain of rice in a tax ledger. When the grand historian was falsely accused of a debt he did not owe and stripped of his titles, he left his daughter with nothing but a jade seal and a mind that could untangle the most complex web of lies. Marquis Mu, an old friend of her father, had taken her in under the guise of a maid to protect her from the political vultures in the capital. Lin Xiao's debt of gratitude belonged to the Marquise, but her heart belonged to his daughter, Mu Yaner. Yaner was a creature of light, a painter who saw the world in vibrant silks and soft pigments. When the winter was at its harshest, it was Yaner who secretly brought charcoal to Lin Xiao's cold servants' quarters. It was Yaner who sold her own paintings to buy the medicinal herbs that allowed Lin Xiao's mother to pass away in peace. During those long nights nursing her mother, Lin Xiao had not just studied the history of the empire, she had memorized her mother's ancestral medical scrolls. She learned the maps of the meridians, the hidden pressure points of the human body that could heal a man or paralyze him with the pressure of a single finger. She kept this knowledge as hidden as her literacy, a silent weapon for a girl with no shield. But now a shadow had fallen over the Mu estate. Lord Zhao Fan, a man whose family had grown fat on the misery of others, had come to collect a debt that did not exist. He didn't want gold. He wanted a trophy. He wanted Mu Yaner. As the Marquis wept in his study and Yaner stared at her brushes with trembling hands, Lin Xiao stepped out from the shadows of the library. She didn't pick up a blade. She picked up a ledger. "Young miss," Lin Xiao whispered, her voice like the first frost of autumn. The Zhao family thinks they are the hunters. They have forgotten that the cleverest prey often leads the wolf into a pit of its own digging. The substitution was decided in the dark of night. Lin Xiao would wear the red veil. She would enter the den of the Zhaos. And she would not leave until their debt was paid in full, not with gold, but with their ruin. Welcome back to Jade Fables, where every shadow hides a secret, and every silence holds a story. If you're ready to see how a humble maid uses the power of a brilliant mind to dismantle a corrupt empire, hit that subscribe button now. The game of chess has begun. Let's dive in. The morning of the wedding arrived not with the joyous trill of flutes, but with a heavy, suffocating silence that clung to the Mu estate like a burial shroud. So outside the gates, the wedding procession of the Zhao family waited. Lord Zhao Fan had sent a palanquin of dark, polished wood, not the bright, celebratory red of a happy union, but a somber tone meant to remind the Marquis that this was a transaction of property, not a marriage of equals. Inside the inner chambers, Mu Yaner sat on the edge of her bed, her face pale as a plum blossom in the snow. Her wedding robes, a masterpiece of crimson silk embroidered with phoenixes, lay heavy on her shoulders. "I cannot let you do this, Xiaoer," Yaner whispered, her voice breaking. "Zhao Fan is a beast. He has no heart. If he discovers it is you beneath the veil, he will show no mercy." Lin Xiao stood behind her, her hands steady as she unpinned Yaner's elaborate headpiece. In the mirror, their eyes met. "He has never seen your face up close, Yaner. He only knows your father's name and your status. To a man like him, women are not people. They are acquisitions. He expects a weeping girl to surrender to his power. I will give him exactly what he expects until it is too late for him to retreat." The swap was seamless. Lin Xiao donned the crimson robes. The heavy gold veil, fringed with pearls, obscured her features perfectly. She took the jade pendant Yaner offered, a token of their sisterhood, and tucked it into her sleeve. As she was led out to the palanquin, Lin Xiao focused her mind. She had spent the last 3 nights in the Mu library, memorizing the tax maps of the Zhao territories. She knew his wealth was built on a house of cards, high-interest loans, and a secret protection fee he extorted from the silk weavers. The journey to the Zhao estate was long. Inside the palanquin, Lin Xiao sat perfectly upright. She practiced the still mind technique her father had taught her, a way to lower her heart rate and sharpen her senses until she could hear the very heartbeat of the world around her. When the palanquin finally touched the ground, the air changed. The scent of cloying incense replaced the fresh mountain air of the Mu estate. This was the Zhao stronghold, a place of gaudy gold leaf and cold stone. "Bring the Mu girl out," a voice boomed. It was Zhao Fan. Lin Xiao was led out, her hands folded in her sleeves. She played the part of the broken bride to perfection. Her shoulders were slightly slumped, her head bowed just enough to signal defeat. Zhao Fan let out a sharp, mocking laugh. "Look at her," Zhao Fan said to his surrounding cronies. "The Marquise's pride, reduced to a silent shadow. Tonight, we feast. Tomorrow, the Mu family signs over the mineral rights." The wedding ceremony was a hollow affair. Zhao Fan was in a hurry to get to the banquet to brag. Lin Xiao was ushered into the fragrant chamber, the bridal suite. She sat on the edge of the bed and waited. Hours passed. Finally, the heavy oak doors groaned open. Zhao Fan entered, his face flushed with wine. He didn't even look at her. He went straight to a rosewood cabinet and pulled out a stack of papers. The Mu family's debt markers. "Do you see these, my little phoenix?" he sneered. "These are the chains that bind your father." He stepped toward her and reached for the veil. Lin Xiao did not move. As the silk was lifted, Zhao Fan's sneer faltered. He expected the legendary beauty of Mu Yaner, but he was met with a face he didn't recognize. A face that was terrifyingly calm. "Who are you?" he hissed, dropping the veil. "Where is the Marquise's daughter?" Lin Xiao smiled. "The Marquise's daughter is safe, Lord Zhao. And you should be more concerned with your own safety. You see, while you were drinking, the Merchants' Guild of the Seven Rivers received a payment. Your primary creditor, the House of Lu, has sold your outstanding construction loans for the new Zhao Canal. Do you know who bought them?" Zhao Fan blinked, his brain struggling to process her tone. "A silent partner bought them," Xiao said, standing up. "A partner who has just issued a call for immediate repayment. Since you used the Mu family's debt as collateral for those loans, and since that debt has just been legally contested in the censorate today, your collateral is void. At this very moment, you are technically bankrupt." Zhao Fan grabbed for the papers, but Lin Xiao stepped back. "Don't bother," she whispered. "I've come to clean your house. This is only the first grain of rice, Lord Zhao." Zhao Fan let out a roar of rage and lunged for her, but Lin Xiao simply moved to the side. He tripped over his own robes and crashed into the cabinet. "Guard!" he shrieked. "Seize her!" But the guards did not come. Outside the door, the only sound was the wind. Lin Xiao had already ensured that the head of the guard would be distracted by a delivery of premium wine she had arranged using the Zhao family's own credit line earlier that morning. "Sleep well, Lord Zhao," Lin Xiao said, stepping toward the door. "Tomorrow the sun rises on a very different world." The morning sun rose over the Zhao estate, but it brought no warmth to its inhabitants. By the time the first servants began their rounds, the atmosphere had shifted. Lord Zhao Fan had spent the night in a stupor of rage and confusion, waking up to find that the silent bride was not cowering in the bridal chamber. Instead, she was sitting in the central courtyard, dressed in a simple, elegant robe of pale blue, the color of a scholar, not a captive. Lin Xiao held a small porcelain cup of tea, watching the frantic movements of the household staff. She had spent the early dawn hours not sleeping, but conversing. She had spoken to the head cook, whose daughter had been dismissed without pay by the Dowager Zhao. She had whispered to the head stableman, whose horses were mangled from Zhao Fan's reckless midnight rides. To these people, she wasn't an imposter, so she was a harbinger of change. "You impudent girl!" A shrill voice pierced the morning air. The Dowager Zhao emerged from the inner sanctum. Usually she was a woman of impeccable, terrifying vanity, but this morning her composure was fractured. Having been woken by her son's panicked ranting, she had thrown on a heavy silk outer robe in such haste that the embroidery was mismatched, and her high-piled hair was missing its usual jade stability. She looked like a bird of paradise caught in a storm. Behind her, Zhao Fan followed, his face a bruised purple, his eyes bloodshot from a night without rest. "My son tells me you are a common maid, a thief who crept into a silk cocoon," the dowager shrieked, her silver nail guards trembling. "Where is the Moo girl?" "Where is the contract for the mineral rights?" Lin Xiao set her teacup down with a deliberate rhythmic click. "The Moo girl is exactly where she belongs, madame, under the protection of the law. As for the mineral rights, they were never yours to take. A debt based on a forged signature is as hollow as a drum. And as for my status, a lion is no less a lion because it wears the skin of a sheep." Zhao Fan stepped forward, his fists clenched. "I'll have you whipped. I'll send the guards to the Moo estate and burn it to the ground." "You could try," Xiao said, her voice dropping to a dangerous icy calm. "But the Imperial Highway Patrol is currently stationed at the Moo Crossroads. They are there to escort the provincial governor, who is arriving this afternoon for the Great Autumn Banquet. Or have you forgotten the banquet you invited the entire city to attend?" The dowager froze. The Great Autumn Banquet was her crowning achievement, a display of wealth designed to cement the Zhao family as the undisputed rulers of the region's social hierarchy. She had invited every official, every wealthy merchant, and every rival noble family for miles. To cancel now would be social suicide. "We will cancel it. We will say the bride is ill," the dowager snapped. "If you cancel now, you admit to the city that your coffers are empty," Xiao countered, standing up. "The merchants are already at the back gate with the delicacies. The musicians are tuning their flutes. If you send them away, the rumors of your bankruptcy, which I took the liberty of mentioning to the Silk Guild messengers this morning, will be confirmed by nightfall." Zhao Fan lunged, but he stopped when Lin Xiao held up a small, black lacquered box. "Inside this box is the original ledger of the Zhao Canal project. It details the administrative fees you paid to bypass the safety dams, fees that resulted in the flooding of 3 downstream villages last spring. If I am harmed, this box finds its way to the governor's lap before the first course is served." The Zhaos were trapped. They could not kill her without exposing their crimes, and they could not throw her out without admitting defeat. "What do you want?" Zhao Fan hissed. "I want you to host the most magnificent banquet the capital has ever seen," Xiao said, a thin, sharp smile playing on her lips. "I want every guest to see the generosity of the Zhao family, and I will be at your side, acting as the perfect, dutiful daughter-in-law to ensure everything goes according to plan." The next few hours were a whirlwind of calculated chaos. Lin Xiao took control. She ordered the finest wines to be brought from the deep cellar, wines the Zhaos had been saving for a decade. But her most brilliant move was in the guest list. She had sent out corrections to the invitations using the family seal she had borrowed from the rosewood cabinet. When the sun began to set and the palanquins of the elite began to arrive, the Dowager Zhao stood at the entrance, forced to smile while Lin Xiao stood gracefully behind her. The guests were not just the powerful. Among the high-ranking officials walked the head weaver of the Silk Guild, and a man Zhao Fan had cheated. There was the widow of the iron merchant, whose husband had died in a mining accident on Zhao land. There were even the elders of the flooded villages, dressed in their best but humble robes. "What are they doing here?" the dowager hissed, her mismatched robes hidden under a heavy cloak. "Social grace, madame," Xiao whispered back. "A truly noble house shows charity to those it has accidentally inconvenienced. It makes you look beyond reproach. The banquet was a masterpiece of tension. Lin Xiao moved through the tables like a ghost, dropping subtle comments here and there. To the provincial governor, she mentioned, "Is it not wonderful how Lord Zhao has recovered the missing tax scrolls from the canal project? He was so worried they were lost in the fire last year." The governor looked at Zhao Fan with narrowed eyes. "Tax scrolls? I was told they were destroyed by heavenly fire in the office fire last year." Zhao Fan, sitting at the head table, choked on his wine. I found them, Excellency. Just this morning. A miracle." To the head weaver, Xiao remarked, "Lord Zhao was just telling me how he intends to return the surplus looms to the guild tomorrow. He felt the Mu family debt was too small a reason to hold back the city's trade. Publicly praised for virtues they didn't possess and forced to promise returns they couldn't afford, the Zhaos were being hollowed out. Every smile Lin Xiao gave was a nail in the coffin of their reputation. She was using their own vanity to strip them of their leverage. As the main course, a giant, which a roasted sturgeon, was brought out, the provincial governor stood up to give a toast. "To the Zhao family," he began, "a family whose sudden generosity to the guilds and the villages has surprised us all. I look forward to the formal audit tomorrow morning to verify these wonderful new ledgers the young bride has spoken of." The Dowager Zhao felt the room spin. The weight of the lies she had to support was becoming a physical burden. Zhao Fan looked at Lin Xiao, his face a mask of pure terror. Lin Xiao merely raised her glass of water. "To a house built on truth," she said softly. The banquet was not a celebration. It was a public confession. By the time the last guest departed, the Zhao family was no longer a powerhouse. They were a joke, a family that had been shamed into doing the right thing by a girl they thought was a servant. "You've ruined us," Zhao Fan whispered, slumped in his chair amidst the ruins of the feast. "No," Lin Xiao replied, looking out at the moonlit courtyard. "I've merely balanced the books, and I believe we still have 2 more chapters of history to write before the Mu family is truly free." The aftermath of the Great Autumn Banquet felt like the cold clarity that follows a fever. While the city gossiped about the Zhao family's sudden philanthropy, the atmosphere inside the Zhao estate was one of impending doom. Lin Xiao did not rest. She knew that social shame was a powerful leash, but only the law could provide a permanent cage. By the second hour of the morning, the heavy iron knockers of the front gate thundered. It was not a guest this time. It was the imperial auditor, Lord Chen, or a man whose reputation for being as cold as a winter stone and as straight as a bamboo spear made even the most corrupt officials tremble. Behind him stood a contingent of the emperor's personal scribes, carrying empty chests and sharpened brushes. "Lord Zhao Fan," Chen announced, his voice echoing through the marble foyer, "the provincial governor has passed on word of your sudden discovery of the missing tax scrolls and canal ledgers. His Majesty is deeply moved by your honesty. I am here to verify the accounts and ensure the grain relief funds for the flooded provinces are fully accounted for." Zhao Fan stood in the center of the hall, his face the color of wet ash. He looked at Lin Xiao, who stood at the top of the stairs, her expression unreadable. She held a single flickering candle, so the light casting long shadows that seemed to dance like mocking ghosts on the walls. "The scrolls," Zhao Fan stammered, his voice cracking. "They are being organized. My bride has been assisting me." "Then let us begin," Lord Chen said, stepping into the study. The Zhao study was a room built to intimidate. It was lined with shelves of gilded books that were never read and decorated with ivory carvings that cost more than a village's annual harvest. But Lin Xiao had transformed it into a trap. For weeks in the Mu library, she had practiced reverse ledger reconstruction. By looking at what was spent on luxuries, she could calculate exactly what had been stolen from the public. She had spent the previous night helping Zhao Fan organize his papers, but in reality, she had been placing the evidence exactly where it needed to be found, not hidden in the back, but tucked inside the very books the auditor would surely check based on standard imperial protocol. "Lord Chen," Lin Xiao said, descending the stairs with a graceful, measured pace. "My husband has been so overwhelmed with his virtue that he forgot to show you the most important volume. It is the annual record of the river silk trade." She reached for a heavy, leather-bound book on the middle shelf. Zhao Fan lunged forward to stop her, but Lord Chen's hand, strong and steady, blocked his path. "Let the lady speak, Lord Zhao," Chen said, his eyes narrowing. Lin Xiao opened the book. On the surface, it looked like a standard record of trade, but as Lord Chen leaned in, he saw the faint, overlapping ink of a ghost ledger, a technique where one set of numbers is written in a disappearing ink, and the real, darker numbers are hidden beneath. "Use the vinegar solution," Lin Xiao suggested softly to one of the scribes. "My father always said that truth, like certain inks, only reveals itself when met with a bit of acidity." As the scribe brushed the liquid over the pages, the false numbers vanished, and the true extent of the Zhao family's crimes bled onto the paper like an opening wound. There it was, 300,000 tiles of silver intended for the canal dams, diverted into the Zhao family's private overseas investments. There were the signatures of the village elders, forged with a clumsy hand, claiming they had received grain they never saw. "This," Lord Chen's voice was a low, vibrating growl of fury. "This is not a mistake, Lord Zhao. This is high treason against the Emperor's people." "It's a lie!" the Dowager Zhao screamed, rushing into the room. She was still wearing the mismatched robes from the night before, her eyes wild with panic. "That girl brought those books. She's an imposter, a servant from the Mu stables." Lord Chen looked at Lin Xiao. "Is this true? Are you a servant?" Lin Xiao bowed deeply, her movements radiating a dignity that no servant could fake. "My name is Lin Xiao, daughter of the Grand Historian Lin. My father was stripped of his titles because he discovered a debt of 300,000 taels that had gone missing from the imperial treasury 10 years ago. A debt that, as you can see on page 42 of this ledger, she was transferred into the Zhao family's private accounts on the very day of my father's arrest." The room went deathly silent. The weight of the revelation was enough to crush the air from the lungs of everyone present. Lin Xiao wasn't just saving the Mu family. She was finishing the work her father had died for. She wasn't an imposter. She was the rightful owner of the truth. "The Lin family," Lord Chen whispered, his stern face softening for a fleeting second. "Your father was an honorable man. I was his junior clerk when he was taken. I always knew the numbers didn't add up, but I lacked the proof. You have brought it to me." He turned back to Zhao Fan, his eyes flashing like lightning. "Seize them. Seal the estate. Every coin, every grain of rice, and every stone of this house is now property of the imperial treasury, until the debt to the people and the Lin family is repaid in full." The imperial guards swarmed the room. Zhao Fan fell to his knees, his hands clawing at the fine silk carpet as if he could hold onto his vanishing world. The Dowager Zhao was led away, her screams of "my jewelry, my jade," echoing through the halls until they were cut off by the heavy thud of the estate's front doors closing. But Lin Xiao stood still. She watched as the scribes began to carry out the chests of gold and the stolen heirlooms. She watched as the Mu family's debt markers were handed over to Lord Chen, who promptly tore them into shreds. "You have done a great service to the Empire, Lady Lin," Lord Chen said, bowing to her, a gesture of respect from a high official to the daughter of a peer. "But the Zhaos are a desperate family. There is still the matter of the human butcher's private guards. They are loyal to his silver, not the law. You are not safe here." "I have never been safe, Lord Chen," Xiao replied, her gaze fixed on the rising sun through the window. "But for the first time in 10 years, I am free. There is one final piece of the Zhaos Empire that needs to be dismantled, and it isn't in a ledger. It is in the hearts of the people they broke." As the auditor's men worked, Lin Xiao walked through the house one last time. She went to the fragrant chamber where she had spent her first night. She picked up a small, simple brush and a pot of black ink. She didn't write a letter. She didn't write a poem. She wrote a list of names, the names of every weaver, every farmer, and every maid the Zhaos had stepped on to climb their mountain of gold. She walked to the front gate and pinned the list to the wood. The Zhaos did not fall because of a girl, she said to the crowd of onlookers who had gathered to watch the downfall of their oppressors. They fell because they forgot that a mountain is made of pebbles, and today, the pebbles have decided to move. The central courtyard of the Zhao estate, once a stage for gaudy displays of unearned power, had become a silent arena. Zhao Fan stood trembling, the small ceremonial dagger in his hand shaking as much from his own terror as his rage. He was a man who had spent his life surrounded by guards and sycophants. Faced with a woman who showed no fear, he looked smaller than the servants he had once beaten. "You think you've won?" Zhao Fan spat, in his eyes darting toward the front gates, where Lord Chen's men were still busy loading the imperial wagons. "You've turned me into a beggar. You've shamed my mother. I will carve that smile off your face before I go to the pits." Lin Xiao stood as still as a statue of white jade. She did not reach for a weapon. She did not call for the imperial guards. Instead, she adjusted her stance, her weight shifting almost imperceptibly. "Lord Zhao," she said, her voice carrying a chilling authority, "you have always lived by the principle of the human butcher. You believe that strength is the ability to inflict pain. But you have forgotten the most basic lesson of the physician. Pain is merely a signal that the body is rejecting a poison. And your family, Lord Zhao, is the poison this city has finally vomited out." Zhao Fan let out a primal scream and lunged. He was clumsy, fueled by desperation. Lin Xiao didn't even have to step aside. She simply pivoted on her heel, her movements as fluid as water. As he stumbled past her, she reached out with lightning speed. Using the techniques she had mastered from her mother's maps of the meridians, she tapped 3 distinct points on his back and neck, the Tianzhu and Dazhui nodes. She didn't use force. She used precision. Zhao Fan hit the ground hard. He tried to push himself up, but his arms refused to obey. He tried to shout, but his voice was reduced to a thin, airy wheeze. His nervous system, overloaded by the sudden blockage of his qi flow, had simply shuddered. What did you do?" he gasped, his eyes wide with a new kind of horror. "Or pressure points, Lord Zhao," Xiao said, looking down at him with an expression of profound pity. "A temporary paralysis. You are currently experiencing what the people of the flooded villages felt when your dams broke. The inability to move while your world is swept away. You are not dying. You are simply forced to watch the justice you delayed for a decade." She left him there, a prisoner of his own body, and walked toward the massive oak doors of the estate's private treasury. The imperial scribes had already cleared the gold, but Lin Xiao's mind was still racing through the calculations. 300,000 tiles stolen, she thought. The ledgers accounted for 280,000. There was a missing link. She didn't look in the safes. She went to the servants' pantry, a place of grease and soot where no noble would ever set foot. She looked at the floorboards, counting the tiles in a sequence that matched the dates of the missing transactions. On the 17th tile, she knelt. She pried it loose. Hidden beneath was a small cloth-bound book, the third ledger. This was the book her father had whispered about in his final days. It didn't contain numbers. It contained names. These were the high-ranking officials in the capital who had taken Zhao's protection fees to look the other way. This was the root of the rot. "Lady Lin!" Lord Chen hurried into the courtyard, followed by a physician and 2 guards. They looked at the paralyzed Zhao Fan, and then at Lin Xiao, who stood calmly holding the small book. "He tried to attack you," Chen said, his hand on his sword. "I should have been more careful." "He was never a threat, Lord Chen," Zhao replied. "A man who defines himself by his shadow is nothing once the sun goes down. I have found the missing piece of the puzzle." She handed him the third ledger. Lord Chen opened it, his face turning grimmer with every name he read. This goes all the way to the Ministry of Justice. Lady Lin, you haven't just cleaned a house. You've exposed a conspiracy that has choked the heart of the Empire for years. I only wanted to clear a debt, Xiao said softly. The news of the Zhao family's total collapse reached the Mu estate by midday. When the Mu family carriage arrived at the city gates, it was met not by creditors, but by a cheering crowd. The people had heard the story of the invisible strategist, the woman who had used a pen to do what 1,000 swords could not. Mu Yaner was the first to step out. She ran through the crowded streets until she saw Lin Xiao standing at the entrance of the now sealed Zhao estate. The two women embraced, a lady and a scholar, bound by a sisterhood that had survived the darkest winter. Xiao, you did it, Yaner wept. My father is free. The debt is gone. And they say the Emperor himself has sent a messenger to restore your father's name. It was never about the name, Yaner, Xiao said, wiping a tear from the younger girl's cheek. It was about making sure the brushes you hold never have to paint a world of shadows again. But the final piece of justice was yet to come. As the Zhaos were led away in the cages of shame, the people stood in absolute, chilling silence. No one shouted. No one cursed. They simply turned their backs. To a family that lived for the gaze of others, being ignored was the ultimate execution. They were no longer the lords of the canal. They were nobodies, ghosts passing through a world that had already moved on. The Mu family held a small, private dinner that evening. There were no gaudy decorations. There was only the Marquis, Mu Yaner, and Lin Xiao. Lady Lin, the Marquis said, rising with a cup of tea. I took you in to protect a friend's daughter. I never imagined you would be the one to protect us all. The Mu estate is your home forever. Lin Xiao looked at the two people who had given her shelter. She felt a warmth she hadn't known in years. I am grateful, Marquis, but a strategist's work is never done. Lord Chen has asked me to assist the imperial audit in the capital. There are many more ledgers that need to be read. Yaner smiled. Then go, Xiao. The world needs a strategist who knows that the most powerful thing in the world is not gold, but the truth. 1 year had passed since the red veil was lifted in the Zhao estate, and the capital of the Middle Kingdom had become a different world. The Great Purge of the Ledgers, as the historians began to call it, had swept through the imperial courts like a cleansing wind. The corruption that had once been as thick as the summer humidity was now being systematically dismantled, one ink-stained page at a time. The Mu estate remained a sanctuary of art and peace. Marquis Mu, no longer burdened by the crushing weight of manufactured debt, he had used his restored wealth to fund a public library and school for the gifted children of the city. He was often seen walking through the gardens, no longer looking like a man with the world on his shoulders, but like a father who had seen his family survive a great storm. Mu Yaner had become the most celebrated painter in the empire. Her works were no longer sold in secret to buy medicine. They were commissioned by the imperial palace itself. Her masterpiece, a massive silk scroll titled The Shadow's Light, depicted a woman standing in a library, surrounded by flying papers that turned into white birds. It was whispered among the elite that the woman in the painting was the true savior of the Mu line. Yaner eventually married a kind-hearted scholar, a man who loved her for her mind and her brush, and who never once asked for a dowry. As for the villains of our fable, their end was as quiet as their crimes were loud. The Dowager Zhao, stripped of her titles, her mismatched silks, and her precious jade nail guards, lived out her remaining days in a small, drafty hut in a distant southern village. She was forced to weave the very coarse hemp cloth she once disdained. It was said that she spent her hours talking to herself, arguing with ghosts about the price of tea. Zhao Fan, the human butcher, suffered the most poetic of fates. After his paralysis wore off, He was sentenced to hard labor. He did not go to a dungeon. He was sent to the very canal project he had sabotaged. Under the watchful eye of the imperial guards, he spent his days hauling the heavy stones used to reinforce the dams. The man who once thought he could own people now spent his life serving the land he had tried to destroy. Every calloused blister on his hands was a reminder of a life built on the suffering of others. The provincial governor and Lord Chen became the pillars of a new, transparent administration. Guided by the third ledger, they removed every official who had taken a bribe, ensuring that the emperor's justice reached even the smallest village. But what of the protagonist of our tale? In the highest tower of the imperial library, a woman sat by a window, her fingers tracing the edges of an old jade seal. She no longer wore the blue of a library maid or the crimson of a substitute bride. She wore the deep purple robes of an imperial advisor and grand auditor. Lin Xiao looked out over the city as the evening lanterns began to glow, and her father's name had been fully restored, and a monument stood in the capital square in honor of the grand historian who died for the truth. She had declined the offer of a noble marriage and a quiet life. For Lin Xiao, the thrill was not in the status, but in the strategy. A young maid, much like Xiao once was, entered the room carrying a fresh stack of reports from the southern port. She looked at Lin Xiao with a mixture of fear and profound respect. "My lady," the girl whispered, "the trade accounts have arrived. There are discrepancies in the grain tax." Lin Xiao smiled, a sharp, brilliant spark of intelligence that promised ruin for the corrupt and hope for the innocent. She reached for her brush and dipped it into the blackest ink. "Then let us begin," she said, her voice steady and sure. "It seems there is still some dust in the corners of this empire, and I have always been very good at cleaning." The story of the invisible strategist became a fable told to every daughter in the land. It taught them that while beauty is a gift and status is a shield, the only true power is a mind that can see through the veil and a heart that knows how to balance the scales of fate. The phoenix had not just returned to her nest, she had redesigned the sky. Thank you for spending this time with me in the world of Jade Fables. Stories like these are meant to be a refuge, a reminder that brilliance, patience, and the courage to seek the truth still have the power to move mountains. If the story of Lin Xiao moved you, I would be truly grateful if you left a comment telling me, which do you believe is more powerful, the sword that can sever a life or the pen that can rewrite a destiny? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next fable. Until we meet again in another tale, may your path be guided by the wisdom that watches and the strength that waits.